This is episode 69 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and joining me tonight to recap Game 4 and 5 of the Edmonton Oilers' first-round series against the Los Angeles Kings are two of my favorite guests. They are also the co-hosts of the Oil on Ice podcast in Brazil, Gabriel Candido and Diego Pontes. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thanks a lot, Eric, for having us. Again here, it will be a pleasure as always to talk, and mostly a pleasure to talk about the games 4 and 5 that went marvelous for the Edmonton Oilers.
That's right. Hello, guys. Good evening again. Actually, here in Brazil. So it's a pleasure, as always, to talk to you guys about the Oilers. So I'm very pumped to be talking about these last two games. Let's go.
Absolutely. And, it's been about 48 hours since the biggest win of the year for the Edmonton Oilers. Diego, has the excitement worn off for you yet, or are you still riding the emotional high following an impressive win on Tuesday night?
I'm still excited about it. What a statement win. We needed that one. So this last game was just a proof that when the Oilers want to play, they're unstoppable. So nobody can hold them. So the Kings couldn't hold the pressure, the intensity. It was such an amazing game. After that heroic game from Game 4, it was such a marvelous game. And this Game 5 was just a proof that the Oilers are really going for it. So I'm very pumped. I'm still pumped, and I think I'm just going to cool down on Saturday after the game, hopefully with an Oilers win and the series finished.
Oh, without a doubt. And Gabriel, how did it feel hearing the fans at Rogers Place chant "Let's go Oilers" during the final 30 seconds of Game 5?
No, it was so good. Like when you compare that to, we came from the games 3 and 4 with the crowd in LA, that it is a crowd that makes a lot of noise and makes a statement when they are there. To see how good it is to the Oilers to play at home. It's really great. It's really great. And in the end, with that statement win, like Diego said, that the Oilers really needed for sure. And it was so good. And so make everyone be excited for the Game 6 on Saturday. And for sure, I can't wait to see the Game 6 on Saturday. I can't count the hours. And I really hope the Oilers can finally close the first round against the Kings. That it is a really, really tough opponent.
Oh, definitely. And, it's a bit of a extended break as well because Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles is being occupied for the next few nights due to the NBA playoff schedule. So the Oilers do get a bit of an extra break. Do you think that it's coming at a good time for the team? Like they had a full day off today and they're going to practice the next 2 days ahead of the playoffs, or ahead of Game 6, I should say. Is this a break that they needed, or would you have preferred them to just get back right out there and play Game 6 right away, Gabriel?
I just saw today on Thursday that Connor McDavid was kind of with a sore leg in the practice or in the morning, and Evander Kane is kind of dealing with some injuries as well. I think it's not major ones, but it doesn't.
He's a little banged up. They said,
yeah, he's banged up. It's not 100%. So that's positive. That's positive to have like a really extended break. But the Oilers are so in their best moment of the playoffs. By far, it would be great. We just send it on ice. If the Oilers can keep going, can keep the momentum going up, it would be great to just finish the series the sooner they can.
Oh, for sure. And Diego, do you think that this 3-day break came at the right time for the Oilers?
Yeah, I think it was a needed break. As Gabriel said, maybe Connor McDavid is dealing with an injury, Evander Kane as well. And he's such a clutch player. We needed Evander Kane to show up during the playoffs. And I think this break will be beneficial for him, and for the whole team. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to have a very strong game. The Oilers will not let this go without a good fight, and I hope they close this one out on Saturday. So it was a well-needed break. And some people might argue that the Kings, they will be benefit from this break? I don't think so. They should worry about the Oilers because they will be well rested. We have Draisaitl, who has been lights out this playoff so far, and a well rested Draisaitl and a well rested Connor McDavid will do wonders for the team. So I'm pretty confident that this break was really good. It was in time, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the fact that the Oilers they're going into the break on a win, or having won back-to-back games actually, is a lot better than the Kings, who have to sit on a loss for 3 days. That's something that you don't want to feel, especially going into Game 6 when your season's on the line, on the brink of elimination. It was also put out on Twitter today by TSN 1260's Jason Greger that if the Tampa Bay Lightning if the Maple Leafs beat the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, then the Oilers will very likely play an afternoon game on Saturday. So that's just another reason to hope that Tampa wins tonight, so that the Oilers can avoid playing in the afternoon and would get a regular 7 or 8 p.m. start time on the West Coast. And we're going to...
I guess they won. I guess they won the game, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if it's over yet. At the last time when I checked before we started recording this podcast, for anyone listening, we're recording this on Thursday night. I hadn't seen if the game was over yet. Maybe Diego can give us a live update here.
Yeah, it's 3-1 Tampa. So I'm pretty sure maybe the game is over already, so I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's on the third period, I think.
Yeah, there's 6 minutes left in the game, and Tampa has a 3-1 lead. So it's very likely that they'll hold on and extend it to a Game 6. So that's
oh my gosh,
some good news for the Oilers, that they would avoid having to play a matinee game, because their overall record in afternoon games isn't sparkling. So I'd prefer to have them play. And you know what? When you have the best player in the world, he should be playing in prime time anyway. I'm sure for you guys, maybe it's a little bit of an easier time for you to watch due to the time difference if the Oilers play in the afternoon.
Yeah, but we use it. We use it.
We're using Stewart. That's true.
So the overtime game in Game 4, what time did that end in Brazil when you guys when the Zach Hyman scored the winner?
Man, it was close to 2 a.m. I think. I will even check when I posted the Zach Hyman goal and a lot of tweets, but it's close to 2 a.m. I went to bed past 3, talking about the game and talking about the goal and letting the excitement go down, and I can sleep again after such a game. But it was really late.
Well, hopefully one of these games...
I gotta tell you something about this game. As Gabriel was saying, the game finished pretty late, and I had to work the day after.
Oh, man.
Pretty early in the morning. So when I saw the score like 3-2 for the Kings, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna watch the 5 minutes left. So I decided to go to my bed, and then I was pretty anxious, guys. I was extremely anxious, but I told to myself that I wouldn't be scrolling down the tweets, because I could be very disappointed. So at the end of the day, I couldn't sleep,
because you knew the game was going on.
Yes, after 10 minutes, I decided to look at the cell phone, and I just found out that the game was going to overtime, and I said, okay, I'm not gonna watch it. This is too much for me. I'm a very anxious person. I have some anxiety crises at times, so I'm not gonna watch it. And then I told to myself, I'm going to sleep, and when I wake up, I'm gonna see the score. Thankfully, I just woke up at 5 a.m. 1 hour earlier than expected, because I was extremely nervous. Then I said, oh my gosh, the time is now. Should I get disappointed for the whole day, or should I get happy? Yes. And when I just looked, the guy celebrating that we had such a powerful victory, I couldn't be more relieved than that, guy. So it was one of the best and worst days of my life. It was a mix of emotions.
I'm guessing as a new father and having to work as well, that was probably a tired day for you. But
It was.
getting to see Zach Hyman's goal, I hope that made it worth it.
It did, absolutely, 100%. But it was, well, it was like nerve wracking. I was extremely nervous, guys, and thankfully the game, uh, finished well for the Oilers community. It was good, was good.
So
No, sorry.
hypothetically, if the Oilers make it to the Stanley Cup final and a game goes into triple overtime, the
Oh
the
boy.
game could still potentially be on at 5 a.m. your time. And if the Oilers
Oh
had a
boy.
chance to win the Stanley Cup that night, would you stay up the whole night and watch it and basically not get any sleep?
I would, but I wouldn't be so sure if I would be alive. But I would be awake.
I wouldn't blink. I wouldn't breathe well for, I don't know, an hour or two. But I can't sleep like Diego. He just went. I wouldn't be able to do it. Like every time I would check the phone. Did they tie it? Did they tie it? Did they won? Did they won? But when there's like Jaime scored the goal, like it was just 1 hour just to let the excitement go. So Diego, if you stayed up to see the overtime, you wouldn't sleep like, I don't know, really really late.
Yeah,
After
well,
That's true.
I
I mean,
celebrate so much that goal that you have no idea. I almost have to take a shower after it. It was so great to see it.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people calling in sick the day after the Oilers eventually win the cup anyway in Edmonton. So you guys might as well take the day off in Brazil as well to celebrate that victory. You might be the only people in your town celebrating the win, but that's a day that I think Oilers fans everywhere are probably going to take the day off.
I would record a video with my students again saying that the Oilers were the champions of the league. So they would be pretty happy to appear in a video again because they like that, So I would have a very good excuse to go to work wearing my Oilers jersey. So it,
There you
it
go.
would be fun. It would be fun.
Oh, I mean, we still have a long way to go to the final, but I think the last two games are encouraging that this playoff run is going to extend. And we're going to break down all the action from games 4 and 5 right away. But first, I want to go back to game 3 in LA last Friday night. It was tied 2-2 going into overtime. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins took a slashing penalty with less than 2 minutes into the extra frame. And Trevor Moore eventually scored the sudden death winner on the power play to give the home side the win, despite a lengthy review as the officials checked the replays to determine whether the sequence should have been blown dead due to a Gabe Vilardi high stick. But ultimately, the call on the ice was upheld and the Oilers were dealt a difficult defeat and fell behind 2-1 in the series. Gabriel, I know that they said there was inconclusive evidence that Vilardi touched the puck with a high stick, even though it clearly changes direction when it's descending. Were you shocked that they somehow got the call wrong?
And I just saw afterwards that a video from an iPhone from a person that was on the crowd showed that the puck changed a little bit of direction when it was high by Gabriel Vilardi. And I don't know how they could call it inconclusive. Like the NHL has to have like the best angles, everything to make the game fair. The game was already being the referees were already being
Having
important in the decision,
on
on the whole game, on the whole other games, and this one was just the last one that just concluded that the referees can change the series. It was tough. It was tough to watch. It was the second time that the Oilers were losing on the overtime. Everybody was starting to think, oh, it's like the Winnipeg Jets series again. The Oilers were the better team. The Oilers can beat them, but they just stopped in a good goalie that is hot and some bad decisions and in some bad luck on overtime.
Yep. I mean, That's a great point. And Diego, from the angles that you saw, how surprised and frustrated were you that the officials determined that he didn't make contact with the puck?
I was very frustrated. In my opinion, that was not a call to be called, you know. So Nuge couldn't take that penalty also, and he unfortunately did it, you know. But I think the refs could have done a better job. You know, they could have done a better job, but they didn't. I was extremely frustrated because, as Gabriel said, you know, the Oilers have been the better team, you know, these last games. Maybe one game, maybe one period, it was not the best team, but we have been very steady in terms of play, you know. So I don't think the refs did a good job, you know, just by calling that penalty. I was extremely frustrated. Couldn't believe it, you know, after all the effort the Oilers have done throughout the game, and they just take a bad penalty like that, and that penalty is called, you know.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it was a pen. You can say it was a penalty, but still, like, to get that call wrong when they had over 5 minutes to look at several different angles, it doesn't make sense that they somehow
yeah,
bungled that call. It just and what's his stick waving 5 feet in the air above his head anyway? So it looks pretty guilty regardless that he's trying to bat the puck out of the air, and you can clearly tell watching it
yeah,
that it's going on an angle and then comes straight down. I mean, I'm not a physics expert, but that's it seems pretty clear to me that that was a high stick. And I was reading your tweets, Gabriel, and of course I have to translate them
No, of course.
from
From
Portuguese to
Portuguese.
English. Thankfully, Twitter gives me that option to do that. So it seemed like you basically had the same opinion that I did on that.
No, I was so pissed when I saw like there was one name. At first, I was Nadal as well. It is a difficult way to see it live. But afterwards, like seeing it slowly with all the cameras on Twitter,
Slow
like
motion, yeah.
minutes, yeah, minutes, like 5-10 minutes after, I had already like a good image that the puck went by the stick of Villardi, and the referees just couldn't do the same. Like I just in the social media could get the image, and then NHL couldn't. And if I'm not mistaken, Conor McDavid was really near the play. And afterwards, Jay Woodcroft said that he just saw that the puck
Exactly. And
got in the.
we're looking at it through iPhone cameras,
Yeah.
and we can tell that it happened. I'm guessing that the NHL has 4K cameras. So when they have that type of technology, it makes you think, how could they not get it right? And first of all, the officiating has been really uneven throughout the series. And I'm not saying that the Oilers haven't deserved most of the penalties they've been called for, but there have been many similar or worse infractions that the Kings have committed that went uncalled. For example, as we talked about, Nugent Hopkins gets called for slashing the stick in overtime. Yes, that was a penalty. But earlier in Game 3, Philip Deneau took a two-handed slash near the hands of Connor McDavid as he crossed
that's
the blue line with the
right.
puck. Do you remember that
Yeah,
play? And there
I
wasn't a
do.
penalty called. And
That
I think
was
that's where the that's
nonsense.
where the frustration comes in for me and probably most Oilers fans. But after watching multiple replays of that high stick, I was sure that they were going to get it right and the goal would be overturned on review. However, just like the Cale Makar infamous non-offside call in Game 1 of the Western Conference Final last year, it didn't go the Oilers' way and ended in another loss. And when asked about the controversial play after the game, you already mentioned this, head coach Jay Woodcroft said, "I thought it was a play where the greatest player in the world was 2 feet away. As it happens, his arm comes straight up in the air because he knows that it hit the stick. Otherwise, he wouldn't have put his arm up in the air. He would have kept playing. It almost appears to me in the video that the puck is going straight up in a trajectory and deadens." And, even though many will say you can't give McDavid the benefit of the doubt in a situation like that just because he's the best player in the world, there's no way that an intense competitor like McDavid would give up on a play in overtime unless he was sure that the puck was high sticked.
No, for sure, for sure. And I don't know, it's good is not the right word, but it's kind of good to see that the Oilers came through everything that happened, and especially on Game 4 that we are going to talk about it really soon, I think. Uh, sorry, and they could became the best team. They could prove themselves even with the referees being receiving all the attention and all the mistakes in a difficult series to be a ref. And they, even with all of that happened, the Oilers could be like right now leading 3-2 against the Kings, and with a great chance to close it out on Saturday.
Yeah, and the Oilers did get a couple extra power plays in Game 5. We'll talk about that after to even it up a little bit, but as of this point in the series, I think the power play differential was close to double for the Kings through the first 3 games. And we saw in Game 1, the Oilers drew a couple early penalties. They scored on one of them on a 5-on-3, and then basically from that point on, the power plays were heavily in the Kings' favor. Do you think that there's something in the back of the ref's head that you look at the Oilers power play, they had a historically great power play in the regular season. It set the NHL record for most successful power play in NHL history. They're in the playoffs. They're on pace to have the best playoff power play in NHL history too, at 57.1% now. So basically, if you give the Oilers a power play, there's a better than 50% chance that they're going to score on it. And I wonder if the officials still somewhat are thinking, if they give the Oilers too many power plays, you're almost handing them a goal. But at the same time, when you don't call the necessary penalties, you're having just as big of an influence on the game as if you do call them. Do you think that they're making the Oilers work harder for the calls that they get just because they know how lethal the Oilers power play is, Diego?
And in my opinion, I think lots of calls have been missed, by the refs. And I agree with you. I think the refs have been afraid, and even the Kings, they know that if they try to cause any injury, any problem, so there will be a power play and there will be a great chance of a goal. I agree. But I noticed that last game the Oilers were not playing this aggressive because they were afraid of the refs, some calls. And after the first period, they started to work harder for their goals. In my opinion, the Kings know, the players know that if they take a penalty, they will be in trouble, big time. And now it gets worse even for their goalie because of the high glove. Corpissalo has been beaten a lot, and I think the Oilers found his weaknesses.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they will try to be careful and not to take many penalties this next game. I hope they do. I hope they get desperate and cause lots of penalties, but hopefully none of the players get injured.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the Oilers were more disciplined in Game 5, and we will talk about that in the next game. But Gabriel, just going back to you now, do you feel like there has been a lot of one-sided calls in favor of the Kings in this series, where the officials don't want to give the Oilers too many opportunities with the man advantage just because of how dangerous they are?
No, the examples that we gave, like the Nugent Hopkins flashing that was called, and the other one like before that really wasn't. We have the Desjardins penalty on Game 1, I believe, or Game 3. I don't believe that that ended up with the Kings winning the game using that power play. The Leon Draisaitl unsportsmanlike right after the Conor McDavid scored the second goal.
And it led to the Kings tying it on their own power play goal.
That was I don't remember when they called it like that. They just touched the leg of the
Kings player. He gave Drew Doughty a little tap on the shin,
Yeah,
where he's wearing shit pants. But the thing is, like, okay, if you're gonna call Draisaitl for that, for just a little light tap, and it wasn't in any attempt to hurt him. He was just trying to kind
yeah.
of get under the skin
Mhm.
of Doughty after everything that he's done throughout the series. But then if you're gonna call that, how do you not call, as I just mentioned earlier, the Deneau chopping McDavid down, a two-hand
And
slash that could have broken a hand or a finger? I mean, just it doesn't make sense how they can call one light little tap but miss a vicious slash.
yeah, like okay, Draisaitl didn't have to tap to draw him. Okay, it was like a silly penalty.
Yeah, he
All
should have
right,
been
I
more
can
disciplined
understand
there.
that, but you have to call the Kings in the other way as well. When the Oilers and the Kings had a good or a good game that was officiated, I think it was game 5, for example, and the Oilers could pass for the Kings. It was kind of a game that the Oilers really made a statement win, and they figured out how they can't make like dumb penalties, silly penalties. Let the Kings came to them, and I think that's a pretty important for the Oilers if they so they can pass the Kings on the first round.
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to game 3, it was a frustrating way to end the game because both games that they lost in overtime were on the power play, and it seemed like in the final 10 minutes, even if you want to say the final period of both of those games, the officials didn't want to call too many penalties, and then they decided to call one in overtime at a point where it's next goal wins, and to put the Oilers in that sort of situation. I just feel like, Kings fans will say it's sour grapes, but I mean, look at how they were complaining about calls after the last game too, saying that the Oilers were missed on a bunch too. So I mean, it goes both ways. But I think that one thing that you were seeing on Twitter is a lot of non-Oilers fans even mentioning that the calls in this series have not been even. Everything from the high stick to the slash on McDavid, the list could go on and on. There's definitely been an influence towards the Kings. And anyway, we'll move beyond game 3 now. And after that disappointing loss, the Oilers erased a 3-goal deficit in the second period to earn a thrilling 5-4 overtime victory in game 4 on the road and evened the series at 2 games apiece. Diego, when the Oilers fell behind 3-0 in the first period, how concerned were you that they were going to drop both games in LA and head back to Edmonton on the brink of elimination?
I was going to turn off the TV, but I decided to keep the pain going. You know, I decided to watch it. I said, okay, this game is lost. We're not gonna have a comeback. I gotta be honest with you guys. 3-0 lead. It's a big lead in hockey. But the Oilers just proved us wrong. They can turn the game, and they did. It was great to see, but I've got to be honest with you guys. When I saw 3-0 lead, I said, "Oh my gosh, we're cool, kid." So we're not gonna win this series. It's over. But I insist, and thankfully the things started going our way. Draisaitl had a brilliant second period. He was really clutch, to make this game, be even fair to us, and we have a chance. And more than him, I think Jack Campbell was outstanding, and he needed that one.
Mm-hmm.
He just proved that he can hold the fort. Like some people say, and he did. He held it. He did an amazing save on Arvidsson breakaway. It was very special to see that. I think this is going to be one of the games that we're going to be speaking for ages.
Yeah.
And even if the Oilers win the Stanley Cup, people will remember that game as the turning point of the season. The series, and yeah, but. Like I said, I was about to turn the TV off when I saw 3-0 lead. I love the Oilers, so I decided to give them a chance, because I know they were capable of changing the game, and they did, thankfully.
And there's always going to be games that you're going to look back on and say that was a pivotal moment or that was a big win that helped them get to the end if they do make it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. I think back to the 2006 Cup run. In the second round, the Oilers were down 2-0 against the San Jose Sharks, and they were in overtime in Game 3. If the Oilers lose that game, they're down 3-0 to one of the better teams in the Western Conference, who had the Art Ross Trophy winner in Joe Thornton and the Rocket Richard Trophy winner in Jonathan Cheechoo, and it's probably going to be very difficult for them to come back and win 4 straight, almost an impossible task. And Dwayne Rollison, the Oilers goalie, made a clutch glove save on a 2-on-1 rush that kept them alive, and they ended up eventually winning in double overtime. So it was a huge win, and the Oilers actually got back in the series and did win 4 straight games to knock off the Sharks and move on to the conference final. And that's just one of the games that I remember along the way that helped them get there. And if the Oilers do go all the way to the final again this year, we might look back to that Game 4 victory and point to how crucial that was to getting them by the Kings, who have played them very tough so far. Gabriel, did you think that the Oilers could come back in Game 4 despite trailing by 3 after the first period?
I was already remember, like, when the first period ended, it was 3-0 to the Kings, and I saw, like, Stuart Skinner is going out, Jack Kemp is going in. I started to remember every sad moment I have with the Oilers, like when they were eliminated by the Jets and the Blackhawks won in the season that was affected by the pandemic. And it was like that feeling. It was hard to believe that the Oilers could overcome it. But when we had the first power play, it was Adler tripping, I believe, right in the beginning of the second period. I think, a goal must happen now if the Oilers want to dream about overcoming this game. And
it was much needed.
It was much needed. And then Evan Bouchard scored, and then Leon Draisaitl continued his show, the great playing that he's having on the playoffs. And when the Oilers tied 3-3, it was so great to see, like, okay, when we started third period, it's all even. Like the Kings had a great first period, and now the Oilers have had the second one. Let's see in the third who can decide. And Jack Campbell was so great. Like Diego said, that save against Arvidsson, I think. I remember I said on Twitter, like, if the Oilers can beat the Kings and pass the first round, this save will be like the one that will be remembered for long time.
Yeah.
And the Oilers, Matt Rice scored the fourth goal of the Kings, but then whenever their game is scored, that's a game-tying goal, I started to believe that the Oilers really could win the game, even with the bad record on the overtime, and even with the past game ending in such a way.
Yeah, and one thing that this team has shown all season is that they're never out of any game because of their high-end offensive talent. But even after watching the Oilers come from behinds over the past 6 months of this regular season, I was still worried that this lead might be too much to overcome, mainly because the Kings are a team that likes to grab an early lead and just play that boring trap style for the rest of the night. But that being said, the Oilers hit 2 posts in the first period, so it easily could have been just a 1-goal game after 20 minutes. But then, as you already mentioned, Gabriel, Evan Bouchard got the Oilers on the board with a power play goal about 5 minutes into the second, and you could start to feel the tide turning in Edmonton's favor. And then Leon Draisaitl scored twice, including the game-tying goal with 10 seconds left in the second period to even the game at 3. And after the Kings retook the lead, Evander Kane comes through with a clutch goal late in the third period to send the game to overtime for the third time in 4 games. And, in the extra frame, someone had to step up and be the hero, and it was Zach Hyman who received a stretch pass from Evan Bouchard and fired a wrist shot under the blocker side arm of Jonas Korpisalo to lift the Oilers to victory. And it was one that they had to get, because going back to Edmonton down 3-1 would have been a really tough situation. and they were able to pull out a huge win on the road. And I can't say enough how crucial that goal was, and big for Zach Hyman to finally kind of get off the schneid and bury one. Gabriel, just after suffering 2 overtime losses in the series already, did you feel like the Oilers were finally going to get one of these overtime games?
I had to think like the time is now. Okay, we had just we saw like the records before the overtime starts, and like the only player on the Oilers that had scored an overtime winning goal in playoffs, it was Connor McDavid on the game 5 against the Calgary
That was
Flames.
their last overtime game
Their
in the
last,
playoffs,
and
yeah.
the other
Or
one,
win, I
it
should
was
say.
against the San Jose Sharks, I believe. It was a game 5, the David Desharnais goal, and that's it. Like in the recent
in the McDavid era, those are the
in the
only
McDavid.
2 Oilers overtime wins in the playoffs.
That was scary. That I said, the time is now. The Oilers have to find a way. A team so powerful on the offense, they have to find a way to win on overtime. It has to find a way to win in such critical moments. And it was like a game that for example, I think every Oilers fan will remember forever this one. We already talked about how good Leon Draisaitl was. He was really marvelous in all the 5 games so far. Jack Campbell, he really needed that game, that good game. Like, it's really great to look to the bench and see that Jack Campbell is ready for a situation like that. But we have to say how Evan Bouchard is playing. Evan Bouchard scored the first goal. He gave the assist to Zach Hyman. It was like a marvelous pass to Zach Hyman. Of course, Hyman had a great shot, beating Korpisalo in the glove side, I believe. But Evan Bouchard is right now the leader on points in the playoffs by the defenseman. So I believe he's a great part of it as well. Not only Hyman, McDavid, Draisaitl, and of course Jack Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Leon Draisaitl, you could argue that that Evan Bouchard might be the Oilers' second best player in the playoffs right now. That's how effective he's been. And really going back to the start of March when Matthias Ekholm arrived, he's almost been a point per game defenseman since that part. After a bit of a slow sophomore season, it's really taken off for him when he's been paired with a veteran steady defenseman. It's sort of rejuvenated him and got him back to the point where he was last year with Duncan Keith, and probably even better, actually. And just considering how lethal the Oilers have been on the power play in this series, when the Kings took that boarding penalty in overtime, I thought that it was going to end right there. However, the Kings were able to kill it off, which is something that the Oilers weren't able to do in their 2 overtime losses in the series. And after scoring a career-high 36 goals this season, Hyman had been pretty quiet in this series up to that point, so it was great to see him finally get one past Korpisalo. And after the game, Hyman actually called it the most important goal of his career. And while Hyman scoring the game-winning goal for Edmonton was the biggest story of the night, we've already talked a little about Jack Campbell, who stopped 27 of 28 shots in relief. Just to follow up on that, Diego, Gabriel, we've said how important that was. Did you think that after seeing such a stellar performance from Campbell that the Oilers should have gone back to him for Game 5, or did you think that it made more sense to stick with Skinner? Just not even breaking down Game 5 yet, but did that game give you confidence that they should stick with him? I'll start with you, Diego.
Oh, all right. Okay, so in my opinion, the coach should ride the hot hand, and Jack Campbell deserved that game, in my opinion. He had a spectacular game. He was extremely important for the Oilers win. In my opinion, I think we should give him a game because he has some playoff experience and he would be, ready from the start. Like, it is an important game for him. He understands that, and he wouldn't let the guys be disappointed. After his ups and downs this season, some sort of inconsistency. I think that game proved that he could, hold the pressure. He could take it, and he made the most of it. He had this opportunity and he was stellar for us. In my opinion, we should give him a chance. But I understand that Skinner has been the goalie, the whole season, and he would get some preference over Campbell. But in my opinion, we should give him a chance.
And Gabriel, there's no doubt that Skinner is the Oilers' starting goalie as of right now, and he was the much better goalie during the regular season. However, he hasn't been as impressive in the playoffs so far. There's been a few rough moments. In your opinion, was it the right decision to go back to Skinner, or did Campbell give you enough confidence that they should have started him again in Game 5?
No, as Diego said, he has a good point that if they went with Campbell, on the Game 5, it would be normal, I think. But I believe the coach and all the staff made the right decision to keep Skinner on the Game 5 just to prove that he is the first goalie. He is the first option of the group. Like he made a regular season that he deserves to be on that spot, even being his rookie season with the team. So I think that gave a lot of confidence to Skinner. He didn't he didn't excel at Game 5, but he was okay. I believe he wasn't great, of course, but I think he was okay, and I believe the Oilers should keep Skinner as a first option, just to give the confidence, just to give you can go. If you have a bad game, okay, that happens. It's usual, like Korpisalo had on the last game, even with him being like one of the greatest goalies of the playoffs so far. But it's good to see that Skinner has the confidence to be the first goalie. But if something happens, like happened on Game 4, we have Jack Campbell that is more than ready to take the spot.
Yeah, and I mean, Campbell's first season in Edmonton didn't go as well as hoped. And over the final 2 months of the season, he basically just played spot duty against weaker teams to give Skinner some rest. And Skinner had played the entire series prior to the first intermission switch, with Campbell not seeing any action in nearly 3 weeks. But he was outstanding in the final 50 minutes of that game, including overtime. And Diego, you already mentioned this earlier, but he made a highlight reel pad stop on Victor Arvidsson on a breakaway to keep the Oilers within one. I think that was undoubtedly his biggest save as an Oiler so far. There was also a loose puck in the crease with two Kings players jamming away at it, and he somehow kept it out of the net. So for him to come into a pressure-packed game when the Oilers are already in a 3-0 hole and play that well was huge for the team. And I think there was a little bit of a debate amongst Oilers fans on Twitter if Campbell should have started. Ultimately, Skinner got the net again, and it turned out well, as we're going to talk about right away. But I think that if nothing else, Campbell gave you the confidence that if he does have to come into a game again, that he is capable of giving you a solid start. And maybe he doesn't have to stop 27 out of 28 shots again, but just the fact that you know that he's not going to – it's not going to be a disaster if they have to put him in there. I think that was a positive sign. We even saw that the last few starts of the season. And yes, he did play against some weaker teams like Anaheim and San Jose, but he was relatively good in each of those games. So I think that you can see the confidence coming back to him. And for a player that relies so much on confidence to play well as Campbell does, that's a positive sign for sure.
It is. I think he has a lot to prove, Eric and Gabriel. I think one game, given to him would maybe, change his confidence and, improve even more. So
yeah,
I love Jack Campbell. I think he's a great guy. I think he has lots of struggles as well. We haven't been this lucky with goaltending these past years. We found Skinner, which was a great surprise, but I still believe he has a lot of game left. Jack Campbell, he could be our starter in the future.
He could bounce. There's a real chance that he could bounce back and have a great second season next year. I mean, there's still 4 years on that deal, so you're hoping that he is going to get back to the form that we have seen him play in the past. Let's not forget he was an all-star a year ago with the Leafs. So I'm hopeful, because if the Oilers have two guys who can push each other for that starting spot, that just makes the team better. So that's where you want to see Campbell get back to. All right, let's move on to Game 5 now. And the series shifted back to Edmonton on Tuesday night. And just like in Games 1 and 2, the Oilers jumped out to a 2-0 lead on home ice. But unlike those previous two contests, the Oilers never relinquished the lead. 13 different skaters recorded a point as the Oilers earned a 6-3 win at Rogers Place to take a 3-2 series lead. And with the victory, Edmonton has now gone 20 consecutive games without a regulation loss, which is a remarkable feat. Diego, Diego, most of the Oilers' offense was provided by the Oilers' big guns through the first 4 games of the series. How important was it for the Oilers to start getting contributions from throughout the lineup?
We needed that. This was something that had been lacking for years, for the Oilers. When we have a guy who just shows up to this Game 5 like Nick Bjugstad and has an amazing game with 2 goals, lots of contributions, as a second line center, that was unexpected in my opinion. But I think he did great, and all of the other guys like Fogle, he has deserved a goal, because he has been playing really solid. Ryan too. I think the Oilers needed a very strong depth group of players, and now we have it, thankfully, and we can compete with the Kings because they also have a very strong bottom 6, group of players. And in games like these, in tight games like these, we needed some bottom 6 players, guys, to show up, and make a difference. And we had that this last game. It's extremely important. I'm very happy about that. I'm really excited to see what happens this next game. I hope Clint Costin scores a goal, Warren Fogle as well. I love these 2 guys and the other players. Why not? So we are cheering for every single player to have a great game. But I'm very happy and I'm relieved that now we have a very strong bottom 6, group of players to compete and make a difference as they have made, these series.
Definitely. And Gabriel, with the Kings almost entirely focused on shadowing McDavid and Draisaitl every time they step on the ice, how encouraging was it for you to see guys like Nick Bjugstad and Brett Kulak get on the score sheet?
No, it was pretty great. Of course, not even the Oilers by the 80s with Gretzky, Curie, and Messier won by themselves. They need to have another players helping with the scoring, with the time on ice. But it was really good. I think the one thing that was really great was the movement that Jay Woodcroft made. They've put Nick Bjugstad on the second line and demoted Kyler Yamamoto that has having some tough games to the fourth line. Nick Bjugstad played so great with more ice time. He's such a good player for the face-offs mostly, and he just showed that scoring twice. But like Brett Kulak have a great game as well. Brett Kulak was another one on the third defensive line that could score and could make a great defensive game as well. Even Darnell Nurse finally found himself on ice again. He has having some great games, but in the Game 5 he played really great. I believe it's really important to have Darnell Nurse at his best. And mostly the third line with McLeod, Fogle, they play so great against the really good third line that LA has with Villardi and Fiala that are just coming back from injury, but they are great players that can decide a game. So I believe that's the game that every Oilers fan and every person that watches hockey was expecting to see the Edmonton Oilers play and win in the way that they won.
Oh, for sure. And, when you have the 2 best players on the world on your team, it's critical for the Oilers to get support scoring from their bottom 6 forwards and their defensemen. if they're going to have success in the playoffs, especially against a stingy defensive-minded team like the Kings, who are getting Anze Kopitar and Danault out there against the Oilers' top two lines as much as possible, especially on the road when LA's able to line match better and have last change. So it was great to see Bukestad pot a couple and Kulak get his first career NHL playoff goal in his hometown for the Oilers. And Zach Hyman scored in back-to-back games as well, even if it was a deflected shot that went off his chin and into the net, which I'm sure didn't feel great the next day. Yeah, but Hyman's a warrior, and he often gets compared to Ryan Smith by Oilers fans, and that was definitely a Smitty-style goal that I'm sure he would be proud of. So I just think to have that kind of game where you start to see the depth guys contribute was big, because we did see that a lot more this season. I mean, the Oilers led the league in goals for with 325. As great as they are with McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins all getting 100 plus points and Hyman getting over 80 points, you don't reach 300 goals without having other guys throughout the lineup contributing. And we hadn't seen it as much through the first 4 games of the playoffs. So for the Oilers to have a game like this where they win in decisive fashion, and that there wasn't a stressful 1-goal lead to hang on to until the final seconds of the game, where they get an empty net goal or try and deny the Kings from forcing overtime. It just felt good to be in control of it right until the very end, and to see multiple guys getting on the score sheet. So that was big. And as big of a positive as it is that we're starting to see more players chipping in offensively, I want to talk now about the Oilers' top point producer. And Leon Draisaitl has easily been the Oilers' most valuable player in the series. He scored his league-leading 6th goal of the playoffs and 10th point of the playoffs in Tuesday night's victory. Gabriel, what can you say about the impact that Draisaitl has had on the series so far?
No, I often joke that if the greatest player in the world, that Connor McDavid, isn't having a great night, isn't having a great series, we don't have to worry so much, because we have like the second greatest player in the world, that is Leon Draisaitl, and he can show. And Leon Draisaitl on the playoffs is, I don't know how, but he is even better than the great Leon Draisaitl that we see in the regular season. Of course, everybody that sees the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid will call all the attention. Connor McDavid will be the player that's most talked about. But Leon Draisaitl is proving himself again. Like last year, he was really great, and he had an injury. He played with an injury since the game 6 against the Kings, I think, in the last playoff run. And he was great, even with the injury. Now that he can play healthy, he can show how clutch he can be, how important he can be for the group. And if Connor McDavid has some problems, Connor McDavid is not scoring a lot of points, scoring a lot of goals, the others can rely on Leon Draisaitl to do that. And he is for sure dominating the ice. Before Game 5, I believe he was on ice for all the 14 goals that the Oilers had scored. And then in Game 5, the bottom 6 appeared and scored. And of course, Hyman and Evander Kane, who scored again. So I believe like when Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid start playing at their peak at the same time, the Oilers are really, really a dangerous team.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And Diego, as great as Draisaitl is in the regular season, do you think he's a player that's built for playoff hockey?
Absolutely, 100%. He's a monster during the playoffs. It's like he enters in his God mode. And nobody can stop him. Yeah, because last year, as Gabriel said, he was playing really great. In one leg. Can you imagine fully healthy as he is? He is unstoppable. He's a force of nature. And I'm pretty sure if the Oilers go all the way to the Cup, he's going to be the Conn Smith winner, because he has been carrying the team, As good as Connor McDavid is, I don't know what's going on. If you don't know it's having a great game and shutting him down, or maybe McDavid is having some sort of injury, as Gabriel said, and some videos on the internet today showed, But I'm not so sure. But if we talk about Leon Draisaitl, there's no doubt that he's the second best player in the world right now. And he's extremely underappreciated by the hockey community. Because he has been always playing with Conor McDavid, and people say, "Oh, this is not a clutch player. This is not a great player. He's a product of McDavid." Well, I think that he's proving all of these people wrong, by his play. And I love him. I've got to say, Eric Gabriel, he's my favorite player, Alongside Conor McDavid, he's my favorite player. And he has always been, He has some character. He plays well. He has a heck of a shot. So how could you not love this guy? He's tough. And I've always felt that way. The Oilers' success, goes directly through Leon Draisaitl. I know that Connor McDavid can decide the series, but if we have Leon Draisaitl playing at his peak, the Oilers are unstoppable. And I'm loving every moment. I'm loving his play now. He's has been tremendous for this series, and I think Oilers fans should rejoice.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we have such a player like him.
it's definitely a luxury to have McDavid and Draisaitl on the same team. And look, everyone knows that McDavid is the best player in the world. But one of the things I love about Draisaitl is that he doesn't just settle for being second best. He's constantly pushing for that top spot as well. And there are
That's right.
nights, yeah, and there are nights or even stretches of games where he will be better than McDavid. I mean, Draisaitl is averaging 2 points per game in the playoffs this year, and he was basically producing at the same clip last spring too. And despite all the Kings' efforts to contain him in this series, he's managed to keep piling up the points and moving up the Oilers' all-time playoff lists. I mean, in Game 3, he passed Kevin Lowe for ninth on the Oilers' all-time playoff assists, and in Game 5, he passed Craig Simpson for eighth on the Oilers' all-time playoff points. And also,
Wow.
prior to the last game, he had been on the ice for all 14 goals that the Oilers had scored in the series. So when you're out there,
How cool is that?
yeah, I mean, it just shows what an impact he has, that he was, whether he got a point on the goal or not, and still getting a point in 9 out of 14 goals shows what an impact he had on the score sheet. But just the fact that his line was constantly the one producing, whether it was on the power play or shuffling him through the third or fourth line when they go with the 11 and 7 formation, whatever they were doing, it's always Draisaitl who's out there when the Oilers are getting damage done. And you used a good term when you were breaking down Draisaitl. You said he's underappreciated, and I couldn't agree more with that assessment. I wrote an article back in 2019 that Draisaitl was the most underappreciated player in the league because of who he plays with. And when you're on the same team as Connor McDavid, you're probably never going to get the necessary amount of applause that you deserve. It's always going to be that he's the sidekick to the best player in the world, even though he would be the top line center on almost every other team in the league if he wasn't with the Oilers. So for this guy to also be making only $8.5 million is a complete bargain. Sometimes fans like to point out the bad contracts or the ones that they consider to be bad contracts for Edmonton, but that has to be considered one of the best contracts around the league for what he gives the team. And also, when you talk about him potentially winning the Conn Smythe if the Oilers were to go all the way to the final, I think back to 1984. That was arguably Wayne Gretzky's peak season, where he was at his absolute best. And yet it was Mark Messier who was the playoff MVP that year when the Oilers won their first cup. I think back to 2009 when the Penguins won their first championship in the Crosby era. It was Evgeny Malkin who got the Conn Smythe Trophy. And when Messier was in Edmonton, he probably didn't get as much respect as he deserved for how great of a player he was until he went to New York and he was the man there. That's when he started to sort of get a little more limelight in the United States. And Evgeny Malkin basically has never received the type of admiration he deserves for how great of a career he's had, because he plays in the shadow of Sidney Crosby as well. So I think you're always going to see that in hockey. And with Leon Draisaitl, even if he doesn't get recognized enough by the hockey community as a whole, the fans in Edmonton that watch him night after night know how great this guy is.
Yeah, we cannot ignore 128 points during the regular season. That was lights out, one of his greatest performances during the regular season, and he's doing even better.
Well, think about it like this. McDavid had 153 points this year. Only the sixth player in NHL history to hit 150 points in a single season. Yeah. So obviously that's going to be the biggest story. But
that's right.
I think it doesn't get mentioned enough that Leon Draisaitl tied Nikita Kucherov for the second most points in the salary cap era with 128. He had the second best season in the past 17 years of the NHL. And the fact that he did it in the same year as McDavid, it's not going to make many headlines, because 150 points is obviously what's going to be the top story. But Draisaitl just year after year continues to get better. And aside from being an offensive beast, he's almost impossible to knock off the puck. You just watch him cycle the puck down low in the zone, and he'll have two Kings players draped over him trying to get the puck away, and they can't remove him from it. And he's just able to extend plays so long by doing that. And you'd like to see him draw a few more penalties than because of eventually they're going to have to call some of the hooks and holds that they're doing to stop him, because with his puck skills and wide shoulders, they just can't get around the guy. And you're just seeing it night after night, what an impact he's playing, dominating puck possession, dominating offense. It's just this guy has been unreal in the playoffs so far.
For sure, Leon Draisaitl is a part that the Oilers are where they are right now. Like if the team only had like Connor McDavid, for example, they wouldn't be so great. Sorry.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be so great like they are. He's a great part on the 505. He's a major part on the greatest power play of the NHL history that happened so far. Of course, everybody will say that the points that Connor McDavid had this season, but Leon Draisaitl was so great as well that we have no way to ignore. He'll have the recognition that he deserves only if he does like Mark Messier did, and then start playing as himself, and then he can prove what the Oilers fans already know, that Leon Draisaitl is a great player.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you, Gabriel, but I'm hoping that unlike Gretzky going to LA and Mark Messier going to the Rangers,
I hope not.
I want to see McDavid and Draisaitl spend their entire careers in Edmonton. So.
No, for sure. And his contract is so great.
Well,
the player that he has, as you said, when Gretzky won what he won because he had like Messier, Curie, Connor McDavid has a shot to be in the Stanley Cup because he has players like Leon Draisaitl beside him.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, no one is ever going to match the talent that mid 1980s Oilers team
for
had.
Sure.
But with McDavid and Draisaitl at the top, that's a pretty good head start. I don't think the Oilers have a defenseman on Paul Coffey's level. Evan Bouchard might get 60-plus points next year, but, I mean, Paul Coffey was getting 120 and 130 points in his prime. So, I mean, we're never going to see that from a defenseman again. And it would be
maybe
great.
Maybe with Eric Carlson?
I was thinking that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's playing on the power play with McDavid and Draisaitl next season, maybe. But now that Ekholm's here, I'm less confident that that's going to happen. We'll maybe do an episode about that in July and August. But the Oilers do they have a Yari? I mean, as great as Nuge is and as great as Hyman is, like, yes, those are excellent support pieces, but the Oilers had 7 Hall of Fame players on that team in the mid 80s. Draisaitl and McDavid are both headed to the Hall of Fame, but I don't know if there's another player on the team that would be Hall of Fame worthy at this point. You'd love to see a guy like Xavier Bourgault eventually make his way onto the team and be a sniper for the Oilers and play with one of those 2 elite centers and fill the net. So there's players that, you know, could be on the way, but to match what that team in the 80s did is an impossible ask. You just have to hope that this team is going to win at least one Stanley Cup in the McDavid era, and I believe they will. Let's actually talk a little bit about Connor McDavid now. He has 8 points in 5 games, only 2 back of Leon Draisaitl. He's tied for 4th in the league in playoff scoring. There are a lot of people who seem to think that he's either playing hurt or that he hasn't looked as great as he did in the regular season, probably because he set the bar so high with the 64-goal, 153-point season, as I mentioned. Frank Saravelli from Daily Faceoff said today that he, from his knowledge and asking around, he doesn't think that McDavid is hurt. It might just be more of a case that the Kings are so focused on him that it's opening up space for more players, and maybe that's also allowed Draisaitl to have a little more success as well. But look, 8 points in 5 games is there's nothing wrong with that. That's still an impressive run. Like I said, he's almost near the top of the scoring leaders, but just because it's McDavid, we expect him to always be heads and tails above the competition. Gabriel, what's your assessment of McDavid's play so far? Do you think that it's been underwhelming, or are you still impressed with his play so far?
No, when you are the greatest player in the world right now, of course the people will expect that every game you will excel, you'll be like really great. But as you said, 8 points in 5 games is really great. It's really, really great. He's tied on third. He's tied on third on points of every team in the playoffs. He's tied with Evan Bouchard, who is having like a phenomenal playoff as a defenseman, and with Taylor Hall in the Boston Bruins, that everybody's saying that he's having as well a great run. But as you said, his numbers on the regular season, you expect that McDavid will be like first and by a great margin, because you get used to see like the points column, the goals column, and see McDavid on first. And when he isn't, it's strange. It's weird. But the Los Angeles Kings are focused on stopping Connor McDavid. And that for one side, like, of course, we have the greatest player in the world not playing.
I just wanted to quickly say, I just did the math on the fly here. I know it's a very small sample size, but 8 points every 5 games is on pace for 131 points in a full 82 game season. No. So to give you a perspective on how he's playing, yes, 131 is down from the 153 that he had, but it's still out of this world good that he's playing at that level. I mean, he's the only player in the last 30 years that's had a 130-point season. So we're talking about he's still contributing at an elite level, beyond an elite level. And he has 3 straight multi-point games. He had 2 goals in game 3. He had 3 assists in game 4, and he had 2 assists in game 5. So I think it's a little over-exaggerated that he's having a bad playoff series. It just comes down to the fact that when you are the best player in the world and that you have shown this ability to produce otherworldly totals, anything short of that, even by a little bit, people are going to question what's wrong with you.
Yeah, and like in the playoffs, it's like a really different way. It's a series against the same team. The team focus on some points, and of course the Kings would focus on Connor McDavid. And it's great to see that Leon Draisaitl could handle the space that he get with all the attentions being on Connor McDavid, and he scored, and he was like on ice for all the 14 goals before game 5. He is the best player in the playoffs so far by a fine margin, and even with that, Conor McDavid has the numbers, as you said, 8 points in 5 games. That ends up with 131. That's it. I don't remember, but it's a great number. It's a great number for him and for every player in the world.
Yeah, I also just want to quickly mention that Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are both in the top 5 in the NHL's all-time points per game leaders. Draisaitl is second at 1.64, and McDavid is fifth at 1.50. So, yes, they haven't played 20 years in the league, and maybe that number will drop down as they get a little further along. But the fact that in the games they've played, that there are only a handful of guys in the history of the league who have produced at a better clip than them just shows how dominant they both are in the playoffs. Diego, what can you say about McDavid's playoff performance so far?
I couldn't say enough. He's a phenomenal player. I think you guys have said lots of good stuff about him. I was just worried, and I agree with your comments. But maybe it's nothing serious, you know. But I was kind of concerned the first 2 games when I saw that he was not like he used it to be, because we tend to be use it to the greatness. We tend to be spoiled in some sort of way when we expect like Mike McDavid doing a highlight reel goal or play. So we are very spoiled, and when we don't see that on a night basis, we used to ask ourselves like, what is going on, and that's what I was asking myself when I saw his first 2 games. But yeah, he has proved that he's still the greatest player on earth, and he has scored like piled up like 8 points already. You know, that's a lot, and I'm really happy to see him stepping up despite all the difficulties, despite the players. Maybe the King players will have some merit in this series because they are trying to shut him down. And still, McDavid is scoring points. He's finding ways to score points.
Yeah, and maybe games 1 and 2 weren't his best, but as I mentioned, he's coming off now 3 consecutive multi-point games, and he's been a big factor in all 3 of those games. Like I said, with the 2 power play goals in Game 3, 3 assists in Game 4, 2 assists in their win in Game 5, just consistently upping his game, and we're starting to see him really take off. I would fully expect him to have another strong game in Game 6 in LA. Let's talk a little about Korpisalo now. Earlier in the series, he had really been tough for the Oilers to solve, and even going back to the regular season when he played for the Columbus Blue Jackets, there were 2 games where he got the better of the Oilers. But it seems like they have now figured him out. Do you think that going into Game 6, the Oilers are now in his head that they've figured out how to get by this guy? Because he has allowed 9 goals in the last 2 games before he was eventually pulled in favor of Phoenix Copley in the last game. Have the Oilers finally got the better of him, and are you that much more confident that they'll be able to keep that going in Game 6, Diego?
I'm very confident. I think we solved Korpisalo, and I think the Oilers will try to explore this weakness, that he has shown these past 2 games. And I hope we break him, like in a good way. In a good way, we could break Markstrom last year. Why not break Korpisalo? So we need this game, and I think the boys will be on fire. They will try to explore Korpisalo's weakness. He's a great goalie, no question about that. He did wonders when he was playing for Columbus against Tampa Bay. He really had a very solid game. Maybe he's pumped, to turn things around. He's going to play in LA, so in his home. So I don't know, but I'm very confident that the Oilers will try to explore his weakness, and I'm very confident that we're gonna have a great result. we'll see. I'm excited for that. I'm looking forward to this game.
For sure. And Gabriel, do you think the Oilers have gotten the better of Korpisalo now?
I do believe that the Oilers would already close the series against the Kings if Korpisalo wasn't playing as great as he are. Like, he's the reason that the Kings could win some games. Of course, the Kings play it well, but Korpisalo was the best player in a lot of games that they won. But since the Evander Kane tying goal on the game 4 and the Zach Hyman's game winning goal on game 5, the Oilers discovered that corner on the glove side of Korpisalo is his weaker spot, and they shot a lot in there.
Yeah, they're trying to expose it as much as they can.
Yeah, and they found it, on the game 5 as well. They started already searching that spot, and as you said, Phoenix Copley went in the game. I have to say that Korpisalo was so great that I did a silly thing. Like, I wrote his name and I put it on a freezer, on a refrigerator here, just to see if he went cold. And it's there. Since the game 4, it's there. It's there right now, and I hope it's the game 6. It's like a little joke.
Did you tweet that out too?
Yeah, I did. I have a photo with in the freezer with a lot of like food that is frozen.
So you're
and
a
his name.
superstitious fan.
And his name. Yes, I am. More than I should be, I believe. But it's working. It's working. It's there and to be remainder. No, but right now. It was great to see that the Oilers finally came through in the game 5 with the silly penalties. Like, they could retain himself. Like, they could play like in 5-on-5. They could focus only on playing hockey, not on the Los Angeles Kings and how they are playing and how they are embellishing some calls. No, they just focus on playing hockey, and they could get through Korpisalo. And as Diego said, I hope they break him in a good way, like the Oilers did with Mark Stone.
Without a doubt. How about you, Diego? Do you have any pre-game routines or superstitions about the Oilers?
I normally used to hang my jersey here at the door, besides the Brazilian flag, and it works, It's been working. But I don't have like a specific routine. I like to do that. I'm not a superstitious person, but in the northeast of Brazil, it's kind of hot, so it's kind of impossible for me to be wearing a jersey, and watching the game.
Yeah.
So I would rather hang on the door, and it works. I keep looking at it and just saying, "Let's go Oilers," this kind of stuff. Yeah, and well, that is my routine,
Yeah, hockey jerseys were originally made for cold weather sports. So wearing them in May in Brazil probably makes it a little hot unless you have really good air conditioning in your place. So
or maybe you live in the south of Brazil, like Gabriel does.
Yeah.
He lives there, so the weather is.
No, for me,
than here.
And the games are like 11 p.m., almost midnight, so I leave the window open, and then it's cold for us here. Right now it's 15, 10 degrees, so I can wear my jersey. That's why I said that when Zach Hyman scored the game-winning goal on overtime, I was with a t-shirt and with a jersey and celebrating like hell, like 2 a.m. And that's why I said, I need a shower, I think now.
You need to relax, yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully there won't be too many overtime games the rest of the way, and the Oilers can just finish it off in regulation.
Yeah, no, for
I
sure.
mean, the Oilers led the league in regulation wins this year, so that just shows you they're right up there with the best teams in terms of finishing things off. Their overtime record wasn't as strong this year as it had been in past years, which is surprising considering how dominant McDavid and Draisaitl are in 3-on-3 overtime, but obviously it's back to the more traditional 5-on-5 in the playoffs. Just to finish up tonight, guys, do you think the Oilers are going to finish things off in Game 6 on Saturday night in Los Angeles? Gabriel, back to you. Do I have you, Gabriel? Diego, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
We might have lost Gabriel.
Yeah, we
To
might
be
have
honest.
lost him. Oh, okay.
Oh,
He's coming
Gabriel,
back.
we got you back.
Oh, I'm back.
Yeah, we lost you there for a second, so I'll just go back
Oh.
to you. Do you think the Oilers will finish things off in Game 6 on Saturday?
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. When Game 5 ended, like it wasn't in an overtime. The Oilers won like with a considerable lead, no emotions through the last second. It was so relief. Like I didn't remember how it was to end a hockey game with a win, and it was so calm, so natural. So I
You
really
like to have
believe
a
that.
multi-goal lead with 5 minutes left, and you can just sort of relax a
No,
little bit and not just be on the edge of your seat right to the end.
and the last 4 games were like that, like
Yeah.
4 straight games like that. We can't stand it. So the others are really in a good spot to close out on in Los Angeles the Game 6. Like I in my bracket in the NHL I put the others in 6. Like I believe that the Los Angeles Kings would be a tough opponent, but the Oilers can close out in 6 games. I really hope they win in Los Angeles and the Oilers can be free of the Los Angeles Kings and go through the second round.
For sure. And Vegas is leading the Winnipeg Jets
Yeah.
1-0 in the first period right now. So if they do win, Edmonton would play Vegas in the second round of the playoffs. And actually, I think the Oilers do match up even better against the Vegas Golden Knights than the Los Angeles Kings, because Vegas likes to play a little more of a transition offensive minded game than the Kings, who really like to just shut things down. They're an opportunistic kind of counterattack team that wait for you to make a mistake and then they pounce on you, and they'll just sit back and play their 1-3-1 trap system all night until you do make that one mistake. So I think the Oilers are actually a better fit. I'd rather play Vegas than Winnipeg, because Connor Hellebuck is one of the best goalies in the world, and we ran into him 2 years ago in the playoffs, and that didn't end so well for the Oilers. So I'd prefer to avoid him, and I think the Oilers just could beat the Kings, could beat Vegas. I think the Kings actually give the Oilers a tougher test than Vegas does. But we can't think too far ahead. We got to focus on this one. Gabriel, did I get a score prediction from you for Game 6?
For Game 6, it will be, let me think, 5-2 to the Oilers. Really calm game at the end. No empty net, no overtime. The Oilers will just run out the clock. And as you said, the Golden Knights are leading the Jets. It's really important that the Oilers could win the Game 6 in Los Angeles. Because if the Golden Knights clinch the series right today, they will have a lot of time to rest, a lot of time to focus. And the Oilers, if they lose in Los Angeles Game 6, they will have to focus on Game 7. Not only the physical fatigue, but the mental one that have to play a Game 7, which is pivotal on the series. So it's really important to the Oilers to close the series on Saturday.
For sure. And Diego, do the Oilers finish things off in Game 6, and what will the score be?
The score will be. Gabriel said my score. I was expecting this kind of score, but I'm gonna say it's gonna be 4-2 for the Oilers. I think the Oilers are the better team. Has been the better team. We have great players. They're going to be clutch. They're going to close out this series. As Gabriel said, they want to avoid fatigue, and we might face Vegas, so we need to be ready for that. It's not going to be an easy opponent. There's no easy opponent from now on. So I'm expecting a huge game from the Oilers, especially the biggest names, like Evander Kane. He wants to prove that he wants to be the scorer that we need. Zach Hyman's gonna have a great game, so I'm expecting a huge game from McDavid, especially, and Leon Draisaitl. They have this chance. They have the advantage. So I'm expecting a 4-2 win, a nail-biting win, and I hope I don't have a heart attack by the end of this game. Because it's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a war. So. But I'm expecting the Oilers to win. I think they're really ready to win this game. They're a great road team. So we have the better odds. Let's see if it pays off, this weekend. Hopefully, yes.
There you go. I'm going to go with a 5-2 win as well. I think that the Oilers will close it out.
After he heard.
Yeah,
but I do believe the
prediction.
5-2 is like a strong one here.
Definitely. And just before we close out the show tonight, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Cecily Eklund. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the story or not, but she's a 10-year-old girl, a huge Oilers fan that is currently battling brain cancer, and she's a childhood cancer awareness warrior and philanthropist, and just someone who's a diehard fan of the team, a big Evander Kane fan, and just seeing their bond over this season is really reminiscent of Connor McDavid and Ben Stelter last year. Nothing but well wishes to her. Obviously, she had a bit of a bad experience going to one of the games in LA last weekend where some fans were rude to her for wearing an Oilers jersey. I don't want to dive too much into that. I want to focus on the positive, that Kane scored the opening goal in Game 5 for her the other night, and that things are looking better for her, and that she was at Game 5 again in Edmonton. I think she had a booth set up there, taking donations for the Ben Stelter Fund with her family. So, I just wanted to give a shout out to her and her family and wishing her all the best. I believe that they raised something like $22,000 the past couple days in honor of the charity. So just I hope things are going well for you, Cecily, and I hope that Evander and the Oilers can pick up another big win for you in Game 6.
Yeah, for sure. To Cecily, that is well known. That's everybody's talking about. Unfortunately, that she had that situation, but to all the children that live in the same situation, with in the same situation, that must be really, really tough, and that they can be strong as never to overcome that. To Cecily and to everyone that is in the same world.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, go ahead, Diego.
No, I just wish her the best. I think she has been a great fan, and she has been great for the community, and she can unite even more the Oilers community. And a shout out to some Oilers. Some Kings fans who donated about $7,000, to her. So shout out to these people. We should keep like the rivalry, this way, doing some positive stuff instead of, like offending people, and wishing bad things, this kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know if this is the right way. So shout out to these Kings fans, who donated to the charity. To her, to the charity, and I hope the Oilers take notice that she's been dealing with some difficulties, and maybe this can inspire them, the whole team to play not only for themselves but for her as well,
Oh, exactly.
Bringing her some sort of happiness and joy she needed.
Yes, I mean, the Oilers have always been a community team. They're obviously playing for themselves, but the organization, for the history of the team, for the memory of Ben Stelter, for someone like Cecily, and I think it was a great move by the organization, the Oilers organization, to send her to California and allow her family to go to Disneyland and also go to the 2 games in LA, and it was great that the Oilers were able to win one of them. It would have been even better if they could have won both for her, but just the fact that she was able to have some special memories like that for someone who's been through more in her 10 short years than most of us will deal with in our lives. It just shows how strong of a person she is, and that Oiler fans everywhere are supporting her and wishing her all the best in her continued fight against cancer. So all the best, Cecily, and this episode is dedicated to you tonight.
Yeah, for sure. To Cecily, to every child that lives with the same situation. We hope for the best, and we know that they are really really strong in an unimaginable way.
Definitely.
Yeah. We're sending our best vibes and thoughts to these people. So, and our prayers as well. Why not? We hope they can have some happiness in their lives, and we hope the best for them.
Oh, without a doubt. Okay, guys, where can people find you on Twitter?
Myself, you can find the Edmonton Oilers Brazil Twitter. It's always in Portuguese, as Eric said in the beginning, but you can translate. We will understand. We can always interact in English. Of course, we can always talk about it's EDM Oilers BR on Twitter, and you can find me there.
Yeah, guys, you can find me at Diego PR Barros, with double R. So I'm always there, interacting with people. Normally, most of my posts are in English, but I also post in Portuguese. So if you want to interact in Portuguese, it's going to be a pleasure.
Yeah, I always say that is the personal account of Diego, like it is different of my account of the Edmonton Oilers Brazil, but he talks the majority of times about the Oilers and in English. So if you follow Diego, of course, it will be worth for sure.
Yes, and I just want to extend the praise and a shout out to the Edmonton Oilers community fan page, Brazilian one. Gabriel does a tremendous job. So if you guys want to get pumped about the Oilers, so you should follow him. It's worth a follow.
No, for sure. I try to do my best. Every time I try to pump the fans, I bring a lot of things from soccer, from football that's more exciting. I try to mix with the two cultures of the ice hockey that's really different from everything we have here in Brazil. But there we can gather like some Brazilian fans. We have a WhatsApp group that we always talk about. Right now we have 46 people in there and they talk all the time. All the time. Mostly in the playoffs, but they talk a lot.
They do.
Oh, and if people want to go back and listen to the last episode we did about 2 months ago, we actually discussed the 2022 World Cup. So there was a little bit of soccer talk in there as well. So for anyone who wants to hear these two guys break it down, although I'm sure you would have preferred Brazil to win the World Cup than Argentina. But,
yeah, for sure. The Calgary Flames winning.
Yeah.
Let me just bring a curiosity today. I've just found out that Andrei Kuzmenko is in Brazil watching a soccer game in Brazil.
Okay.
That's kind of funny. Maybe we'll see one day Leon Draisaitl or Conor McDavid watching a soccer game in Brazil. Why not? You never know, eh?
But just like
that was funny.
But just like the Oilers are the better franchise historically than the Flames, and right now for that matter, Brazil's still the better hockey country, or Brazil's still the better soccer country, I should say, than Argentina, right?
Oh, yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, we have 5 World Cups. Argentina now has 3, but we still ahead by a margin, not a fine margin, a great one, but it's good. It's not 5-1 like Edmonton
we still won then.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe Brazil will be playing games in Canada in the 2026 World Cup when North America hosts it in 3 years. So, yeah, it's a shame Edmonton's not getting any games, but that could have been a reason for you guys to come up and see a game in Edmonton if they would have been playing here. But I'm still hopeful we'll all get a chance to go to an Oilers game in the future.
Yeah, we hope for that
absolutely.
too.
Absolutely, I'll do all my best. It's kind of hard to get in there, but I'll do my best to one day see Conor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl on ice on the Rogers Place.
Definitely. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks. You have a good night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Eric. Let's go Oilers. Have a great night.
Thank you, Eric, as always, for the invitation. Thank you, Diego, for being with me all the time here in Brazil to make the Oilers Brazil community even bigger. And of course, let's go Oilers.
Let's go Oilers. All right. So for Gabriel Candido and Diego Pontes, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.